The UK Prime Minister is due to announce sweeping changes to England's planning system that could see councils forced to consider building on the so-called Green Belt. Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to override what he calls blockers, who stand in the way of building the 1.5 million new homes he says are needed to solve the housing crisis. The Conservatives say Labour's plans will bulldoze through the concerns of local communities. But Housing Secretary Angela Rayner says they'd put a roof over more heads. Well, let's speak to Maya Singer Hobbs, Senior Researcher at the Institute for Public Policy Research, who's working on planning reform. Good to have you with us. And obviously, as well as dealing with the housing crisis, this is obviously a key part of the Labour government's proposals to build the economy, get lots of people working on big projects like building hundreds of thousands of homes. But I know that you've said if these homes aren't built in the right places and if they're not the right type of homes, then they won't do anything to solve the housing crisis. So begin by telling us what are the right places and what are the right types of homes?
Those are great questions. So I think, there isn't any question that we need some more housing. In terms of the right sorts of homes and the right sorts of places, what we'd really want to see in these changes, and I think what that they've sort of said is that these sort of announcements today will make recognition of the fact that housing need varies across the country. We know that, the southeast, for example, has lots of housing pressures, and we'd want to see that these sort of rules reflect that. What we'd also be really clear that we'd want to see is not just a focus on sort of, homes in sort of suburban areas. We know that councils are facing rising costs of temporary accommodation, and we really want to see emphasis placed on sort of building a mixed tenure. So that includes social housing, that will include affordable rent homes, and it will include homes for sort of first-time buyers and others, to make sure that we're actually meeting the needs of everyone in the country and meeting all of the different parts of the housing crisis.
Now, governments would argue that often plans for building new homes get log-jammed in discussions at council level, objections from local communities saying they don't want more homes in their area. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is saying he's going to deal with the blockers, as he called them, but when it comes to the Green Belt specifically, these protected areas of land, do the plans concern you? So I think building on the Green Belt's always going to be controversial. And I think that if it's not handled carefully, then it could be quite concerning. What we've seen the government say, and we actually haven't got all of the details yet, but what they sort of indicated is that the building on the Green Belt, the so-called grey belt, as they've called it, will have set certain criteria. So building on the Green Belt happens already. Last year, I think we saw over 3,000 hectares of Green Belt being built on. The rules that they're introducing should actually make it sort of stricter. So there are more restrictions on the building that can happen. So there have to be certain levels of affordable homes. There have to be sort of the right public services and infrastructure. We know that lots of the reason that people don't like building and don't like development in their areas is because they're worried that they're not going to be able to get a GP appointment, or that their kids aren't going to be, the schools are going to be at bursting point. Prioritising those public services and that infrastructure should help reassure people that that development doesn't mean a sort of decline in their services in their local area. OK. Maya Singer Hobbs from the Institute for Public Policy Research, thank you very much for your time today.